Welcome to the Renaissance Podcast, a podcast for Renaissance women
and men
who want to create a modern-day Renaissance in their life and business.
We interview some of the most successful entrepreneurs and share their unique stories.
Are you ready to create your Renaissance? Hey!
Already don't know what to do.
Oh my gosh, this is our first podcast episode.
It's something we've been talking about since early 2019, about as early as it gets.
I'm pretty sure we were driving home from Atlanta for Christmas 2018, right before it was going to be 2019. And we were listening to Gary Vaynerchuk, who we both love. Mm-hmm. And we figured out that we both had that mutual obsession with everything Gary V. And I think at the end of the podcast, we were driving like through Chattanooga and you were like, we should start a podcast. Yeah. And I was like, that's stupid. No, we don't know anything. We don't know enough.
It's so funny. I mean, when it just goes to our aspirations of just you and me being like, we could do this.
Yeah.
We got this.
I know. It's like we've always had that same attitude of like, we'll just figure it out. And here we are. Well, so let's talk about this podcast. So I think we should probably give an introduction of who we are, even though the only people listening right now are our parents.
Yep, 100%.
We're siblings.
We are.
For anyone that doesn't know, and everyone knows that's, I think, listening to this right now. But yeah, so I'm Sydney. I'm the CEO and founder of Renaissance Marketing Group.
I'm Walker. I'm the COO of Renaissance Marketing Group.
Chief Operations Officer.
Yeah, I guess I got to define that.
I think you do. I feel like COO is one that you have to like define.
I always hate saying it though.
I know.
It's so I don't like to explain.
We both don't like to say our titles. Yeah. I think when people are like, "What do you do for work?" I'm like, I work in social media.
I just do social media marketing.
And they're like, "Oh, what agency or who do you work for? What company?" Yeah. And you're like, "Mine."
Yeah.
It's like super awkward. I hate it. It's
I don't like talking about it.
So uncomfortable.
Yeah, it's weird. But yeah, I mean, so here's our podcast. We're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship and talk to leaders and talk to different people. But I think the most important thing that we could do right now is explain who Renaissance is, what Renaissance is, and what we want to do with this whole podcast and what we've been envisioning.
Yeah, I think this episode is just one intended to share who we are, what the point of this podcast is, and what you can expect from listening to it, and two, so that Walker and I can understand how to podcast, because this is the first time we've been behind a mic. And we're on video now too. We've got our awesome producer, videographer Evan here, who's the only other one in the room. There's also a couple Maltese dogs in here. So yeah, where do you want to start?
Well, I think the biggest thing that we have to address is why we're named Renaissance, because every time I have to give my email to someone or anything, they're always so mad that they have to spell out Renaissance because they don't know how to spell it, and then also Marketing Group. So I think I would love for you to kind of start with that backstory and explain how you named it, why that name is so meaningful to what we do, and how that translates into digital marketing of all things, and how we kind of use that name to live our lives.
Yeah. So there's two different ways I could go about answering this question. I feel like I need to kind of go down the longer way because it does get to the end of it, which is how I named it. So I'm just going to kind of give the quickest backstory of the start of Renaissance for anyone that's curious. So we're going to talk about this, but I worked for a museum here in Nashville, really successful company museum called the Johnny Cash Museum. And there I really worked my way up to being at the very top of the museum. Really, when I left, I was the executive director, really couldn't have gone any further, which is crazy considering, I was so young. I think I was 22 when I left that job. And that was my start in social media. That was my start in business. And although I loved the job, I loved my position, I loved the services I was doing and the Facebook page and just the incredible growth that we saw giving that museum their renaissance. I didn't, to be honest with you, I didn't love the management. I didn't love my boss. And I frankly, I didn't like working for the man. I wanted to work for myself. I always wanted to be my own girl. And I always struggled with kind of reporting to someone because it's just, you know me. I can't report to anyone but myself. I'm a hard head.
It's very tough to get you to do anything.
It's very hard to get me to do things, especially that I don't want to do.
You got to make them seem like they're your idea.
And you've crafted the art of that, I feel like. So anyway, so I left that job. I moved back to Atlanta, where we're both from, where we grew up. Moved back in with our parents, which was kind of horrible. And I mean, not horrible. I mean, our parents are amazing, and I know they're listening to this. Like, wait a minute.
Yep.
But it was hard because I was taking a step backwards. I had taken 10 steps forward in my career and then immediately made that quick decision to move back in with mom and dad at 22 years old, when all my friends at that time were getting engaged and, you know, moving in with their husbands and all of the things. And I was going back to mommy and daddy's house. And so I just took a 6-month sabbatical, really, really honed in on what the heck I wanted to do. And came up with the idea of Renaissance one day because I was applying for jobs in social media in Atlanta. I was applying for, like, Coca-Cola had a position to be a social media manager, and I was really ambitious, like, I could do that. And I remember telling our mom that, and she was like, you probably need a college degree to go work for Coca-Cola corporate.
Yeah, I mean, that was like, at the time where having a college degree, obviously it's still important now in a lot of places, but it's, I would say, more socially acceptable now to not have a degree. I don't think a lot of companies look at that right now and think, oh, well, you have your master's or whatever. I mean, we definitely don't look at that here.
No, and neither of us have degrees. But just a really important part to this story, I was able to get a really, really great job at the Cash Museum without having a degree because I worked for a family-owned company that didn't value a piece of paper. They valued people that really cared and that were willing to do whatever it took. And I really put a lot of that into this company. I don't even give a crap if anyone has a degree. I just want people that care and that, know a little bit about what they're doing and that just have the drive to
you just want to learn,
excel and learn. Exactly. And so flash forward, was applying for all these jobs, I wasn't even hearing back from any of them. This was fall of 2014, end of the fall. And our dad literally said to me one night in the kitchen, Sydney, why are you applying for Comcast and Coca-Cola and all these? You're just going to go work for the man again. Yeah. Why don't you just start your own social media agency?
Right.
And I'm so grateful that he had that at that time, to me, such a crazy statement because I don't think I would have had that idea.
Yeah.
And it's kind of
so
crazy.
Funny, the man who knows less about social media than any person on this planet.
World. He literally doesn't know how to do anything, but he's so just believes in us, and he just was like,
do it yourself.
Do it yourself.
He's always been, and that's very important to all of these stories, is him teaching us from a very young age, do it yourself, or us just seeing him, work on things himself growing up, working on the house, building something, fixing something on a car, whatever, like that just mentality of do it yourself, I think translates to both of our stories.
Yeah, exactly. And so it was like a week later. I mean, I went upstairs and I wrote out like my own social media company. We have that paper framed right there in my office. Maybe we could like post a picture of it, but I wrote down like what it would be like if I had my own agency, quote unquote. And then I remember it was like the next day, it was like December, it was right before Christmas. I came downstairs and I asked mom, I was like, I got to name this thing. I need your help. You're so creative. And our mom is so brilliant and creative. And she is the cutest person ever. She was an art history major and she went and grabbed this giant like textbook of art. And I was like, what are you doing? And she grabs it and she comes over to the kitchen table and she sits it down in front of me and she just starts going through pages. And we're both, and then I'm starting to catch on to what she's doing. I'm like, oh, you're coming up with a cool concept for a name. I love that. And we landed on this page that had this just gorgeous painting from the Renaissance era. It was like of cherubs, like little angel cherubs, like the naked little angel babies on this blue ceiling. And I remember it because that was my Facebook cover image background for a while for Renaissance Marketing Group, because I was like, that's my inspo. And she was like, Renaissance. Yeah. What if you named it Renaissance Marketing Group?
Right.
And I was like, well, group, I'm one person. And I was one person in a group for 4 years before we hired our first person. But she was like, then it can be like you're giving companies their Renaissance. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. So that's the name. All in all, it's, what happened after the bubonic plague, in Europe at that time. there was this huge rebirth of creativity, of energy, of opportunity, of businesses. A lot of businesses were born in the Renaissance era, which of course business then looks a lot different than business today, but there were a lot of entrepreneurs born, scholars, ideas. So many things happened. And so it was so inspiring to talk to our mom about this, because she was like, that's what you can do. You did that for the Johnny Cash Museum.
Do it for other businesses.
You can do it for other businesses. And I loved that play on words. And so I think I struggled with the name for a couple of years, because a lot of little social media agencies were birthed after I had created Renaissance, and they were called like, you know, they had all these cool modern day names, like, you know, something media or like
so-and-so collective or something.
Yeah,
you know,
and I was really...
Which is cool, to each their own.
To each their own, but I think I had some insecurities with the name for a moment, just as you do as a business owner, as an entrepreneur. Like, you're always going to have the ebbs and flows.
Like, the name is going to really make or break what you're doing.
Me. Well, and people would always be like, it's the longest name.
Oh, I said it earlier. It is so long.
Yeah, when we give our email addresses, it's torture.
It is.
Like RENAISSANCE, and everyone's always like,
but then
how
you
do you
also
spell
got
it?
The marketing and the group. There's two G's in there.
Two G's. There's double G back to back. So anyway, so that's kind of the history of the name, and now we still use that all the time when we're telling our clients. We're like, look, we are the team for you. Here's why. We're going to help give you your Renaissance. And when we mean by that, it's different for every client. Some clients need a visual Renaissance because their visuals are horrible.
Yeah.
They need copywriting Renaissance. They need video Renaissance, like what Evan does. They need or just strategic Renaissance.
Just a whole strategic Renaissance. And I think that's probably one of the thing that we do is we come in and we take a comprehensive look at everything and then rebuild.
Yeah.
And go from there. We don't really like to use previous, like a lot of people or clients will come up and say, well, we have all these old photos, and sometimes we can use them, but a lot of times it's like, no, we need to rebuild. Like, you were living in the plague, and we need to cleanse you. And it's a little bit fitting that we're, you know, still dealing with this pandemic, but coming out of it, and you know, just how we dealt with clients and taking on new clients in the start of the pandemic, at the beginning when it was the worst, and we would take on new clients, and it was literally a renaissance of its own. But a way that I like to apply it too is, you know, how I got involved, and really like using
Let's talk about that.
Renaissance as not really business, but as a renaissance of my own life. And I think we're going to name this podcast Out of the Dark Ages and Into the Renaissance, because we like to look at it of like out of the dark ages of working for the man or corporate a job that you didn't like that took away from your family or time or whatever.
Didn't allow you to be creative.
Just a dead end.
Didn't allow you to grow, which we both were in those positions.
Using that inspiration to start a business or find a new job or just go out and do something on your own or take a pay cut because it's at a job or a organization that you really want to work for. Like that's all a renaissance in its own right, and that's very much what I experienced. In 2018, I guess it was, I was just kind of dead end in college. I think I had dropped out after failing math for like the third time and just
We're so bad at math.
So bad at math. Never been good. And
why do they make you take algebra outside of high school? I don't understand.
I don't know. I don't think that I've ever used a letter to solve a problem.
I'm just saying.
I don't know.
All right.
I don't.
Different podcast episode, but like I don't understand.
I don't get math. But that was my thing. I was always such a bad student, and here I was in college. I didn't even know what I was going to get a degree in. Like I think at one point, as much as I hated math, I was an accounting major. Like what?
Makes total sense.
Yeah, so stupid.
Hates numbers.
And then I was like going to get a law degree. I don't even know. I was all over the place. And then I figured out, and this was all over like 3 semesters really. And because I dropped out halfway through my 4th semester. And then I got a job at a BMW dealership where my life started to change a bit because that's what really put me on the right path to move forward. I knew that like, I wasn't going to be in college, so I just needed to save up money and figure out what I want to do. And then I kind of had all these random side business ventures while working at the BMW dealership. I really got into drop shipping, where I would take products from China and sell them online, and never made any money. I was just randomly advertising dog leashes and collars and random stuff, but it taught me how to build a website, taught me how to run Facebook ads, taught me how to basically learn social media marketing, doing that all on my own. And I didn't even really think about you, that you had this agency now.
Yeah.
You were 4 years into it at this point. And it didn't really click until I was driving one day, because I used to go on very long drives when I worked at BMW. And at that point, I would just call everyone. And so I started calling you because I was like, well, I haven't talked to Sydney in forever. So let's maybe just catch up as siblings. And I would start to ask you just kind of about your business and what you were doing and some of the clients that you worked with. And I think one of the things that got me excited was that I could potentially do social media marketing, photography, and videography and advertising for like a car dealership for BMW. So instead of having to work there and sell cars and do all this stuff that I didn't even want to do, I could just be creative and take photos and videos of them. Yeah. And you were like, yeah, that's what I do every single day.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, okay. And we kind of just got more and more involved. I think I kept calling you several times.
You did. You kept calling me, and I just kept getting excited and honestly flattered that, because I mean, I felt like at that time no one in our family knew what the heck I was doing.
And it immediately intoxicated me.
Yeah.
Like it consumed my mind. And I remember you would like send me proposals. I would go to networking events and just like try. I think I brought one lead to the door.
You did bring some leads. You
and
did.
You were probably like, these are really stupid.
It was like a car painting company. Yeah. And I was like, but you know what? If you can bring in some money, I can pay you.
Yeah.
So like, let's try it.
Yeah.
And so we tried to make it work from you being in Athens, me being in Nashville. But at that time, Nashville was starting to tiny little ripple effect of me growing, because I had hired Mindy.
Right.
And she was our first hire, which was a huge deal.
Yeah.
And you and I were chatting quite a bit, because you were like, oh, you hired something. Like, you're meaning
you're
business.
Doing it, yeah.
But I remember you gave me so much confidence in what I was doing, because you were like, no, Sydney, that's really cool. Because I was really struggling in 2018. I was struggling with starting over, because I was in Atlanta, I had started the business there, had clients, moved back to Nashville.
With Renaissance in
Nick,
Nashville.
Yeah, and had to go through all of my old contacts from the Cash Museum. And I had to, tell people, and, hey, I haven't talked to you in 3-4 years, but I started this, social media thing. And it kind of worked, because it got us the Storytellers Hideaway Farm client, Johnny Cash's farm. And that was a big, huge client opportunity for us early on. But I just remember you were so enthralled with what was happening, and it
so cool.
gave me more momentum
and I just
in
knew
what we were doing.
From like, I guess like I had just been inspired from people online, seeing people like, because it definitely, I think this industry just became more and more popular. Obviously it's super popular now, but in like 2017, 2018, I just started learning more about it, and then seeing people that I knew kind of in this world. Mm-hmm. And then I started to see the potential, of like the money that we could make, what we could really grow, how freaking cool it was.
We could probably cuss on this podcast.
We can either cuss, we'll beep it. How cool it was. And just, I just was so intoxicated. And I think we got to a point where it was like, hey, this isn't going to work with you being in Atlanta.
Yeah.
And it's funny, because I remember I was going to call you and say, hey, I want to move to Nashville. And then I think you called me, or I brought it up, and you were like, one of us somewhere along the lines was like, I was literally just about to ask you, and I was about to tell you. Like, it was just
the same
there.
day.
The same day.
Yeah. You got to move here.
And we both knew. And ever since then, our brainwaves have been completely aligned, which has really been incredible. It's been almost 4 years now of us doing this together.
Especially since I said, and some of our family members won't let me forget that I've said this, but I said I would never work with family. That was like, I don't have any rules, but this is my only rule. I won't work with family.
Yeah.
And this has worked so well. And I think that it's because we trust each other. I trust you more than anyone. You're the COO of this company. You're going to run this company when I take my maternity leave in a few months. I'm pregnant, just so everyone knows. I didn't just have too many croissants. Oh, goodness. But, the trust has always been there, and the vision.
Right.
You've always understood the vision, and we've talked about doing this podcast for years, and we're finally doing it, because I think you and I always knew we would eventually do it.
We would, I mean, we always talked about it, but like
the timing was never right, but now the timing is right.
We always said that the business didn't really start until the day that I got here, pretty much.
Yeah.
Like that was when like you and I were kind of like, well, crap, we got to get going, because I also didn't make money for like 6 months.
Walker lived with me for 8 months.
8 months,
because 6 months was when it got bad.
When it was supposed to be over, I was supposed to the 6 months was like
the time.
I'm
set
either
a date.
Going home to Georgia, or we're gonna keep doing this, and you're gonna have to move out or whatever. But like things, obviously, like as business goes, it's not always crystal clear.
It's not.
So we weren't able to make that timeline perfect, but it's 6 months.
It was almost there.
Of still living with them.
It was great for 6 months. You lived with me and Nick and I were married at that point, I think. Yeah we were. And, we were all roomies and we did a lot of we worked together all day and then we got off work and we were together again. And
we worked from your guest room. It was awful.
I know. It's so crazy how different we are now. And now, flash forward to now.
Yeah.
We're currently in our best year. It's only March, but we're somehow already, we just had a meeting with our accountant on Friday, so I can confidently say we're doing very well.
Yeah.
We, in the pandemic, flourished. I feel like a lot of digital agencies, pretty much anyone in digital, killed it in the pandemic. We were one of them. And we continue to. 2021 was our best year ever since starting the company. And
made more hires, more fires, which I see
with
them.
it.
I see them all as a win. I see everything that we've done as a win because it's all a learning experience.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't know anything. And that's why it was like a thing from God almost for us to not start this podcast, even though we wanted to. And we were talking about this earlier, but we didn't.
The experience
we didn't
there.
have any experience. No. I mean, I had nothing. Like I had bare minimum amounts of experience with advertising, web development,
and business. This is really more of, it's going to be a heavily social media marketing based podcast because that's our biggest passion together.
Yeah.
But we love business and we're so enthralled with how every entrepreneur story is different to how they came into the business, how they acquired it. We're going to talk to people that acquired companies, that went out and bought them, that sold them, that exited companies. We're going to talk to just so many founders who are no longer tied to the name, but are still the founder of huge multi-million-dollar businesses. And we're going to get very nitty-gritty because you and I are very detail-oriented people. We want to know how the heck they did it because we're trying to do it every single day.
And we just care about business so much. I mean, that's truly it. Just we're so fascinated, and I think that's one thing that set us apart from everyone else. And it is a quote by Gary Vee. We love Gary Vee, but we try. We got to keep our distance every now and then. But one quote that I think stood out to me the most, that's I think helped with everything, and it's something that I put into a lot of aspects of my life because it's super important. But there's a famous quote: "The best marketing strategy ever is to care." And that's truly it. We don't care just about the marketing that we put into the business, but we care about the business. We care about, are you guys profitable? Like, where are your areas of the business that you're hurting? We want to be involved in all aspects of our clients' businesses because it helps them.
Yeah.
And
it helps us to know the back end because then we're able to. I mean, we really do more than social media, which is why I'm so glad that we're Renaissance Marketing Group and not Renaissance Social Group or whatever it would be, because we are really business forward.
Yep.
And with our Mona Lisa Foundation that we launched last August, we're doing so much more than just giving one woman a year a social media renaissance. We're actually giving her. You gave her a bunch of hiring advice recently and making her first strategic hire. Mm-hmm. We're going to talk to her this month about accounting practices because we have these tools. And if we don't maybe have every single tool, we're going to pull in somebody else who would be able to help guide her through that. So that's something we will link in the show notes is about the Mona Lisa Foundation. So I'm really excited about that.
Yeah, it's great. The mom and dad are going to love to read about that.
I know, the two people that listen to this.
That's funny.
Well, I think that's pretty much it. We wanted to just talk about how Renaissance got started, and what this podcast you can expect. We didn't want this episode to be super long. I think just the next couple episodes, we're not really sure exactly what we're doing, but
we're going to talk about business. We're going to talk about entrepreneurship. We're going to talk to cool people. We're going to probably talk about our business and different strategies and important things. If there's breaking social media news, we'll talk about it. And I think it's going to be great. I think we're going to have a lot of fun with this thing. And I think the listeners are going to get a lot of value as well. That's our main goal. Like, let's give you guys some value and have fun along the way.
Sounds good. Well, I think we just wrapped our first episode. Thank you for listening, Adlin and Paul.
All right. Bye.
Bye.